Hello, everyone. It's nice to have you with us. That beautiful tune is Mr. Isaac's Maggot. The dance is the same name. The band is the fabulous Bare Necessities, Kate Barnes, Earl Gaddis, Mary Lee, and Jacqueline Schwab. CD is Strong Roots, and it's available at the CDSS bookstore. It's nice to see you and have you here with us. I hope our East Coast friends have made it. I know there's been some trouble out there, and we're hoping you're all okay. I am Darlene Hamilton, and we are the Historical Tea and Dance Society. We have Lindsay Verbal assisting with the program, handling media, and our attendee questions. And questions are an important part of this web talk, so you should locate your chat box now, whether you're on Facebook Live or Zoom. Know where that chat box is because a lot of stuff is going on and people are asking questions there. We have Renee Turner with us monitoring Zoom for questions and doing the postings there. And we have Larry Hansen monitoring Facebook Live chat and posting there. So, you know, we're paying attention to you and we're trying to get all your questions answered. Stick around for the after talk. It was either sent in your registration email or it's posting on Historical Tea and Dance Friends page and in this web chat. So, you know, stick around. It's going to be fun. There is a lot of stuff we could not get to that you don't want to miss that's going to be in that after talk. I want to send a thank you to Karen Axelrod. She was working so hard on bringing us that concert today, and we got most of it, so yay! That was amazing. We were able to do that. And also, tonight, Lark's Camp Celebration will be hosting a Breton music and dance session after our talk, and it's with Shira Kamen, who's going to be on our show on August 25th, Jim Oakton, and Adrienne Simpson. So we'll post a link for that later on. Let me get to our bio for our wonderful guest tonight. Beverly Francis has been dancing enthusiastically since 1974 and has called dances for 40 years. She's an early member of Ringo Bells Morris and a founding member of New World Sword. Beverly's extensive dance knowledge inspired a Ringo Bells Morris ditty, Beverly Francis, she knows lots of dances. And yes, she does. She's known most for her time in the New York metropolitan area with Country Dance New York and has called many of their Playford balls. We will hear a little bit about that later. She has led dances and workshops from North Carolina to Massachusetts, as well as Ontario and Ottawa and the Bay Area. She's been a dance leader at Country Dance and Song Society summer programs at Pinewoods Camp. So we're still celebrating Pinewoods at the Early Music Week, at the Campers Week, and English Dance Week. She has taught country dance for the Jane Austen Society of America, both at weekend programs for the New York chapter and at the national organization's annual general meeting. She is perhaps best known or widely known for the 1997 New York Times article, In Step with Austen, which we will hear a little bit more about later in the web chat. So with all that, welcome Beverly Francis. We're so happy to have you with us. Here she comes.
Here I am.
Hey. Yes.
I'm very happy to be here. And I am grateful for all of the work that Darlene and Lindsay and the team put into this. All kinds of things are being juggled behind the scenes while we look calm.
Well, thank you. It's really fun. So I will say that. All right, let's jump right in to the things, okay?
Sure.
Here we go. Thing one, gratitude. What
Gratitude.
A great one.
My mother used to say to me with great regularity, that country dance has really been good to you. And since she was somewhat of a cynical curmudgeon, she was completely mystified how anything could be so much fun and be such a generous, welcoming community. But it has been. And I think introverts like me have found a home with English Country Dance and Contra. And we can go, we can have fun, There's not the social anxiety that we feel in so much of the rest of our lives. And I think part of the reason is probably that country dance is a cooperative effort, and we don't feel spotlighted. It's easy to dance like nobody's watching. It's also interesting to me how many leading lights have identified themselves as shy people. And part of the secret for me is standing behind the microphone. It's like a little force field. And I'm in the unit with the band, and the dancers are out there. And basically, we're all there to have fun. And shy people, we can do it. I'm also grateful to CDSS and their support of traditional music and dance. Where would we be without our national organization? You know, even if you are in a little tiny center far away from Massachusetts, your leaders have gotten training through CDSS, your books and your music come from them, grant money comes from them, all kinds of support and information is available through the national organization, and I am grateful for them. I'm also grateful for local organizers, callers, and musicians. The local folks are the mainstay of our national community. 2 years ago, David and I left 40-some years of dancing in New York to move to Columbus, Ohio. And we are now close to our son and our 3 grandchildren here. Do I miss New York? Of course I miss New York. How could you not miss New York? But I am delighted to be part of a small dance community here in Columbus. I have to say I am thankful for meeting David Chandler at the New York Dance in 1975. We got married in 1980. The 40th anniversary is coming up, and it's been country dance all the way. I am grateful to Morris Dancing, which taught me to call ahead of the phrase. If you've ever been on a Morris team, you know that your teammates will kill you if you haven't called before the phrase. And naturally, I forgot that I have a picture here from 1975 or 76 of David in the green coat dancing with the American Country Dance Ensemble, the Bicentennial Troupe. And I came along on their coattails as sort of a costume mistress, and I worked a mean iron, and they all danced beautifully in these public performances. You can see Jim Morrison and Marnie Morrison at the top of the set. David in the green coat is dancing with Jody Evans, and I will talk about her a little bit in the after talk. And that was where I got my start in 1974 in Philadelphia, 1975 in New York. And I do have a picture also for Lindsay to bring up of Ring a Bells Morris. I joined the team in 1975, a few months after they started dancing out. And as I mentioned, Morris Dancing taught me to call ahead of the phrase, and that's why I'm alive today. And
that photo is coming up. Sorry for the delay.
and my first trip to England.
Something in the background.
Yeah, my first trip to England was with Ring a Bells in 1979. There we go. I'm in the fool's costume, dancing across from Deirdre Bialo-Padin, and Janice Murtaugh is standing to the side. She has since moved to Australia, but Deirdre is going strong in New York and is one of the founders of Half Moon Sword. So Morris Dancing, boy, did we have fun. Sword dancing came along a little bit later. Here is New World Sword. And we did a dance where at the end of it, we raised my son William up on the lock. He's about 8 years old there. We stopped lifting him on the lock when his feet got so big, we couldn't find the sword lock anymore. And I danced with New World for more than 10 years. And one of the things I'm grateful for from that experience is the value and pleasure of teamwork. Also, there's other things to be grateful for. Summer dance camps and dance weekends. Each one has been its own little dance paradise. I am looking forward to Pinewoods Family Week next summer because I'm planning to go with David and our son and some assortment of grandsons. And some of the staff were camper kids with my son back in the day. And some of the people who were on the staff teaching are still there on the staff teaching. And to bring another generation to enjoy traditional music and dance, it just warms my heart. I'm thankful to the New York Dance Group for welcoming shy callers to the microphone and starting its apprentice program. I was in the first group of apprentices along with Tom Phillips and Jody McGee, who is known to folks in the Bay Area, and Bertha Vary, who at one point was the director of CDSS. And probably most basically and most simply, I am thankful for the sheer joy of moving to music, and not least of all, live music. And that brings us to thing two.
Ah, yes, it does. Thing two.
Music. And there's thing two. The music. I have to say, I love dancing to live music, and I love the immediacy, the playfulness, the improvisation. As the caller, I love standing right next to the band, practically in the band, and hearing it live, seeing how they interact with each other. I love how the music drives the dance. And I have a video example for Lindsay of music driving up with Eiley in New York. And you'll see how the dancers are really keyed into the music, and the formations snap into position, and there's a circle in 6 counts at the end of the round, and they really make that circle go, largely because the music is the engine driving it all. Thank you. So that's the New York Dance, probably about 6 years ago. And it's a YouTube video, and I think that Lindsay and Darlene are gonna provide the link for that. Imogene Holst, who's the daughter of Gustav Holst, and was a mover and shaker in the English Folk Dance Society, said in a book called Tune, which was published around 1960, that dance is music made visible. Now, this quote is also attributed to such people like Kierkegaard and Balanchine, and you'll see it on hundreds of ballet posters. But I like the fact that somebody connected with our world of dance also said it. And one of the points she makes is the early play for tunes, you can almost visualize the dance from the music. It's like the caller saying, the music tells you what to do. And it's partly because the older tunes are so well phrased, you may not know exactly what to do, but you know that the phrase is telling you to do something. And live musicians can give you that emphasis with their phrasing and really help you get through the dance. I know Darlene sometimes asks, and who's your favorite band? Well, my favorite band is the band I'm with. And I really mean that. Whoever is playing at the moment is my favorite band because being with musicians playing live is just so exciting. Sometimes there's a little too much excitement. One of the bands I used to love in the past never kept track of the A's and B's. I had a regular gig with them, and so I learned to be giving the call for the dance and also shouting out to the band where we were in the music. But I still loved them because it was live music. One of the challenges for callers is learning to program to let the band shine. And not every tune is for every band. And I have two musical examples to illustrate that. The first one is Vivaldi in Paradise. And I'll just tell you this little story about it first. In New York, Vivaldi in Paradise was on the Playford Ball program. So we were doing it every week. And whoever was the musician that week, they had to play the tune. And my Barnes book came back to me one Tuesday evening after the dance. And under Vivaldi in Paradise was penciled in Fiddler in Purgatory. So that was definitely not a happy match that evening. So let's listen to Vivaldi in Paradise and hear how many notes are in it and how maybe not everybody wants to play this tune. Not so bad so far, but here it comes. Okay, so I think it's pretty easy to see that not every musician would be thrilled to get that on their tune list. And of course, one of the things a caller should be doing is giving the musicians right of refusal to say, I really don't want to do that one. And if possible, you arrange the program to their liking. The other example I have is Fast Packet. And in this recording, the tune is Enrico, and it's a hornpipe with a lot of emphasis on the upbeat. And let's hear what that is like. So playing a traditional hornpipe, the dancers are using a step hop, and you want to emphasize the offbeat because that's when they're in the air. If you emphasize the downbeat, they become, drilling into the floor. I have been told that sometimes classically trained musicians are mystified by the emphasis on the upbeat in country dance. And of course, the music for a hornpipe is written very straight and it's played very dotted, and a classically trained person might not find that too accessible. So not every tune for every band. And that's a good thing to keep in mind. I think we're ready for thing 3.
Indeed we are. Thing 3, skip one. Role models, the grand dames.
So one thing about having danced for so long in New York, I had the experience of dancing with May Gadd and Jenny Scheimer, Sue Salmons, Christine Hellwig, Fried Herman, and each had their own style. And May Gadd was not exactly at the top of her game when I met her. I was 25 and she was 84. We have a picture of her, a caricature. This is from the New Yorker magazine in February 7th, 1953. They wrote a lengthy profile about May Gadd, and it's worth looking up. So she saw country dancing for the first time when she was about 21 years old in 1912 and said, that's what I want to do. It was a light bulb moment. And in the late 20s, she came over to the United States to help with the New York Bureau. And in the late 30s, the Country Dance Society was formed in the United States. She was its first director until 1973 when she retired. She didn't call regularly when I started dancing, but she did come up to the microphone from time to time. And when I was just about 25, I went to my first dance weekend, and she was at the mic teaching Hambleton's Roundeau. I was a very new dancer. I knew almost nothing about triple minors. The whole thing was a little stressful for me. And all of a sudden, I hear May Gadd saying from the microphone, "And don't scurry about like that girl." Meanwhile, she wrote an article in the late 20s in which she said, the teacher's aim must be to get them to relax. In order to accomplish this, it is very necessary to have a pleasant, friendly atmosphere in class. For this reason, it is well to avoid individual criticism at first. So there you go. I think she broke her own rule that particular day. But it was interesting to be one step away from Cecil Sharp, I have to say. Jenny Scheimer, I'll tell you a little bit about her, and then we have some video to show. Sharon Green collected this quote from Jenny. "You've got to move. You're not just dancing down here with your feet. Dancing isn't just with your feet. It's up here. It starts up here." And by that she means your upper body. And it's the whole body that is involved. And the music counts. Music, music, music. It's the response to the music that is so important. And I've always wanted to be Jenny Scheimer when I grow up, I have to say. She was known for her command of the room. She welcomed new material. I believe she was the first teacher in New York to call Mr. Jersey's memorial. And we have some video of her teaching an early American session at Berea in the late 70s, I believe.
Okay, let me show you one more time. What you're going to do, you put out your left arm, and if you think that you're going to be as though you're going to link elbows, only keep it straight. Your other arm goes behind you, and there are the hands. Just do it. Left as though you are linking, and then look over your shoulder and you pop that. And you go very stately fashion. In a very stately fashion, you go once around. Now, come on, this isn't that difficult. Let's do it. Here we go. Alaman, first point. Okay, now I'd like to see that done with some ease. A little poise now.
So that's Jenny Scheimer, straight ahead, no frills. And we have a New Yorker cover to show that illustrates some country dance humor about some terminology of the day. This cover was from 1977, and when Lindsay gets it up, we'll see that it is a breakfast table. And somebody took this, cut it down to postcard size, and sent it to CDSS. And the caption was, "Portrait of a Country Dancer at Rest." Because one of the favorite sayings from May Gadd and Jenny Scheimer was, "Lift the egg out of the egg cup." And people have all kinds of ways of describing this nowadays. You know, you engage your abdominals, you make sure your shoulders are relaxed, you feel buoyant in your upper body, but lifting the egg out of the egg cup was the favorite metaphor back when I started. Another metaphor that Jenny used was, when shot by an arrow, a country dancer always falls forward. And that's because you're supposed to have so much momentum from the lean. Sue Salmons is another one of the Grand Dame callers who had a lot of influence on everybody at the time. She was stylish, energetic, a little theatrical in both Morris and country dance. One of her favorite instructions to us when we were learning a dance was to do it with an air. She was also on Ring of Bells, and we all had the same kit. We all had the same vest and the same hat and the same knee breeches, but somehow Sue managed to be the most stylish of us all by being absolutely wrinkle-free, having her hat at a jaunty angle, and always with polished shoes. So definitely a very stylish person. Christine Hellwig was another caller who had a national presence as well as a presence in New York and in Westchester. She was known for her research and her interpretation of historical dances. And she started dancing in, I think, early middle age, but she really came into her own as a teacher and a leader, somewhat older than the other callers. And she disguised a certain lack of energy with her stateliness and her graciousness. And for dancers nowadays, she's probably best known for her reconstruction of Wise Me, What Mun I Do? Though she had an entire book of Purcell tune reconstructions and a book of dances by Thomas Bray. So she was very active in the reconstruction field. The last caller I wanted to mention is Friet Herman. Paul talked about her extensively. My son's favorite nickname for his 2-year-old is the Tiny Tyrant. And with all due respect and affection, it's a little bit the way how I think of Friet, because she definitely was a larger than life personality in a very small body. One of her relatively early dances written in 1984 was in honor of my son William's first birthday. It is called Dancing Babies. And hugely creative and definitely demanding throughout. I just wanted to mention the New York Playford Ball scene briefly. And Lindsay has a slide with the program from the first Playford Ball in 1984. And the last ball that I was involved in, which was 2017. Here we go. So up above in the handwriting, you can see the program from 1984, and it is all historical dances. The program was chosen and called by Jenny Scheimer. And in 2017, I shared the calling with Dorothy Cummings, and nearly half, I think, of the program is modern dances. So you can see that things evolved. In the first 6 years of the Playford Ball, there was only one modern dance called in that entire time span, and that was Mr. Jersey's Memorial. And Nowadays, it's often roughly half of the program. So time marches on and dance changes.
So I was wondering, I know you've done so many different Play for Ball programs. Did any of them, was one in particular the most fun? Did any stand out to you as that was very successful? I like that one.
Well, I have to say, in terms of fun, because I was able to please myself entirely, but the ball in 2009 was fun because I called it all by myself. And
Oh.
Suzanne Ford was the ball chair. I don't know if she's listening in, but I'm sure she'll have something to say if she is. And for the first time in a number of years, the program was entirely historical dances.
Oh, that's cool.
And I did it because I could. And it was a little bit of a reaction to how many modern dances were creeping into the ball program when it's such a wonderful opportunity to do grand historical dances.
Yeah.
So that was 2009. And, you know, not that I dislike partnering up with people, but it's an eternal compromise for two people to come up with a program of 21 dances that you both agree are fabulous.
I can only imagine. It must. Yeah. Yes. So I think with that, we're ready to move on to thing number 4.
I think we are.
Great.
Yeah.
Number 4, grist for the mill.
This is a little bit of a catch-all. So it's a lesson in all parts of your life, you know, come together when you are a dance caller. And like a lot of people, I went through the adolescent angst of rock and roll, also modern dance class. Appearing in public in a leotard was excruciating for nearly everyone in the class. And then, of course, my mother, in her effort to have me growing up to be a proper lady, sent me to ballroom dance classes when I was about 13 and 14. And it doesn't take any imagination at all to realize how excruciating that was. But luckily, English country dance and contra dance came along, and I discovered that my natural movement fit in with a country dance walk and with a sword dance tread. And it was great. I learned the movement. I liked the sociability, and I think being sort of loose-limbed played into how easy it was for me to fall in with that style of movement. Other things that come into play a little bit anyway are my interest in social history and dance history. It didn't come around until years after I had been dancing, but over time I have enjoyed reading about the history of dance, and also finding out where dance titles come from. Graham Christian has had a wonderful column in the CDS News in the past called Tell Me More, and the little information boxes that he has and that Keller and Scheimer have in the Playford Ball are really a good source to find out where the dance tunes came from and what they might mean. I'm interested in how the world has changed, social history, feminism, and how all of that has played into dance history. You know, dance instructions are no longer published from the point of view of the first man, as they were in Cecil Sharp's country dance books. I'm interested in literature and dance, Jane Austen in particular, and we'll get to more of that later. I worked as a librarian, both in public libraries and elementary school, and being a librarian and a storyteller plays into calling skills, and there is nothing like herding a crowd of preschoolers, 3- and 4-year-olds at story time to be good training for herding people when you're teaching dance. And people who know me know that I'm fascinated by textiles and historical clothing. I've been a weaver and a textile designer and have been involved in making dance clothes and flavored ball gowns. And Lindsay has a picture of my ball gown from, I think it's 2004. This was made along with Kit Campbell, who's a name some people may recognize. She was really astoundingly skilled, is astoundingly skilled at historical costume. So this fabric is actually an ikat weave. The print design was painted on the warp before it was put on the loom, and then it was woven, and the effect is almost a watercolor effect. The design is roughly 1780s. It has that flyaway cape on the back, Watteau back. And one particular aspect of the bodice part, which is called a stomacher, Kit said to me, "You will make fly fringe for this stomacher." And I said, "Well, yes, ma'am, I'll make fly fringe. What is it?" And she showed me a picture from a book published by the Victoria and Albert Museum. And here is a close-up of the fly fringe I wove on a belt loom to put on the bodice of this gown.
Wow, that's beautiful.
You can see a little bit of a gold leaf lying underneath it. This aesthetic was definitely at the too much is just enough end of the spectrum, because the stomacher had everything on it. But I wove this little tape for a 1/4 inch wide and put in these little ribbons and these little bits of fluff and those little arches, and it made its way onto the dress.
Beverly, how long did it take you to make that?
Well, you know, I had a full-time day job at the time, and assembling all the components took a little bit, but I think I wove it in about a week. At the time, I had a loom that could weave 60 inches wide, but I decided not to weave a 1/4 inch wide object on a 60-inch loom. And I had a little belt weaving loom, and I did it on that.
Wow, it's very impressive. I'm sorry to keep interrupting. I do some costuming, and many in our group do costuming. It's beautiful. This voice from beyond chiming in.
Well, it was an astonishing process to make it. And, you know, back in the 18th century, ladies were often sewn into their dresses by their ladies' maids. And this dress had not quite reached the finish line on the evening of the Playford Ball, and Kit came and sewed me into the dress to get me out on the floor. So we had a little bit of 18th century experience there. And when I walked in, I must say, there was an intake of breath all around the room when the dress made its entrance.
Boy, is that exactly the right commentary you want from your costume that you've worked so hard on.
Yeah. So I have a picture of the other side of fashion for me. Lindsay's going to show us Pinewood's garb. And making a country dance outfit, I'm happiest when it has at least 3 different prints in it, and happiest of all when I can wear it with polka dot socks. And this Pinewood's in 2006. You can see Anita Anderson and Shira Kamen and Wayne Hankin in the band.
So what's the secret of the polka dot socks? Are they good luck?
They just make me happy. Polka dots and stripes, particularly stripes cut on the bias, should you care to know the details, are really what float my boat.
That's a great reason. Do you get a lot of polka dot socks for gifts for Christmas and your birthday?
I could only wish. If Santa's listening, he knows what to do.
I sense polka dot socks in the future.
And the last thing I wanted to say about Grist for the Mill was that one thing that is good for callers to keep in mind is that transitions between one part and the other are often not written into the dance instructions. And it can be very useful for you to say at the end of the phrase, and now you all face up to be ready for what happens next. Because when people are learning the figures, they can't intuit that because they haven't experienced it yet. But if the caller has worked that out ahead of time, the teaching can go much more smoothly. And the other thing that I have worked on as grist for my mill is learning to teach in the moment and to adjust on the fly. And you know, you have one eye on the clock, so you know how much time you have left. You have one eye on the band to make sure everybody's happy. You have one eye on the crowd, one eye on your dance notes, perhaps. So there's a lot going on with the caller. And so do you want to hear a little bit about a couple of weird gigs, or should we move on to Jane Austen?
Yeah, let's hear a little bit about weird gigs. I love it.
Well, every caller has these, and every musician has them too. One experience I had was going down to McLean, Virginia, and teaching dance to some high school students who were in a program to be docents for the day at Mount Vernon. So this was an extracurricular activity for them. And Tom Spilsbury organized them, and he very kindly taught them how to do 4 changes of rights and lefts before I got there, because let's face it, nearly every colonial dance has that. So we did the workshop, we had a great time. The kids all had costumes for the evening, and we danced in the evening at Gatsby's Tavern in Alexandria, and the kids had called the event Colonial Prom. And you gotta love Colonial Prom. In my day job as an elementary school librarian, the 4th graders had a colonial unit every year. And I volunteered, Lord save me, I volunteered for this to teach kids colonial dance every year. And it was embedded in school culture, and kids would enter 4th grade and they say to me in September, are we gonna have to dance this year? And I would smile brightly and say, oh yes, we're gonna dance this year. And the teachers always wanted boy and girl partners because it was going to be a little performance for the parents. And of course, for most of these kids, the opposite sex had cooties. And after about a year, I stopped having them take hands. Chip Hendrickson has an excellent book, Teaching Colonial Dance to Children. And he has no hands versions of quite a number of dances. But even so, the kids were just squirming with discomfort every time we started this project. The boys sometimes would fall on the floor because they just couldn't cope with the stress of having to stand 3 feet away from a girl. And what else was I going to say? I don't know. Well, one year I had a class of 4th graders who were so immature that they didn't think the opposite sex had cooties. So I taught them to do a dance where they took hands, and they did it very nicely. But eventually word got out, and they asked their teacher, well, you know, the other classes don't have to take hands. Why do we have to take hands in our class? And their teacher very wisely told them, oh, Miss Francis knew that you were all so mature that you could handle it. So, sneaky teacher. And it was a real challenge every year to get these kids to dance, but every year they pulled it out for the performance for their parents. And I would come in one of my big ball gowns and stun everybody. And I'm not sure I'm hearing
That's very
anything.
cool.
There you are.
No, sorry, I'm maneuvering things in the background.
Yeah.
And I think you also had one other story that you were going to tell us, because you actually, when you were a brand new dancer, got to dance at a session with Pat Shaw, didn't you?
Yes, I did. So this was not my weird gig, it was his weird gig.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, I was moving on from the weird gigs, but before we end out this thing, what was that like? I can't even imagine. That sounds great.
Well, I started dancing in Philadelphia in the fall of 1974. I was taking classes at Philadelphia College of Textiles. And a classmate of mine said, "Oh, I've been going to this country dance. Maybe you'd like to go with me." And I did, and basically I never looked back. And after I had danced for 3 weeks, Pat Shaw came to Philadelphia. He had been at Pinewoods in the summer of 1974, and he stayed in the United States for a while, and Philadelphia was one of the places he came to. And this was, more than 40 years ago, but I still remember parts of it vividly. He was big and barrel-chested and boundless energy, out on the floor demonstrating and teaching. And I remember doing 2 dances. When you think of, how many events have we all been to, and how many dances do we remember doing in a particular time and place? It speaks to how compelling he was that I remember these dances. One of them was the Rifleman, which was a Sicilian circle that had a ladies' chain where you turned once and a half on the courtesy turn to face in a new direction. That was very exciting. And then he did K&E. And I was too new to even understand how complex it was and how creative it was. But we did it, and we had a blast, and I learned it from Pat Shaw.
Wow. That's so cool.
I think he was about 60 at the time, late 50s, early 60s. And very sadly, he died quite young, something like 67, I think. And that was his only dance teaching trip to the United States. And it is not a coincidence that he was invited to come to Pinewoods after May Gadd had retired.
Wow.
I don't know the details behind that, but I believe that there is a cause and effect there.
Well, what an amazing array of teachers you've had.
Yeah, yeah.
We are going to move on to thing 5. You had to know it was coming. Thing 5, Jane Austen.
Jane Austen. There are so many wonderful quotes from Jane Austen's letters and novels. But in Emma, she says, "When the felicities of rapid motion have once been, though slightly, felt, it must be a heavy set that does not ask for more." And she danced out from the age of 16. We know she had dancing lessons in school. She probably danced with her family at home in Hampshire. And dancing fills her novels and her letters. The New York City chapter of the Jane Austen Society in North America found me in the early 80s to call dances at their weekend programs at Mohonk Mountain House. And this is a spectacular Victorian resort up the Hudson Valley from New York City. And they had lectures during the day, and we had a party on Saturday evening. And I remember using recorded music. I had audio cassettes, and I had one recorded at a normal tempo, and then I had another one that I had slowed down because I don't think I had access to a variable speed cassette player when I was there. So I came with this bag of cassettes at various speeds. And I did that twice. I've had quite a variety of events over the years. All of them have been for recreational dancers, and all of them have been done without fancy footwork. In 1997, Country Dance New York was lucky enough to get an article in the New York Times. And in Darlene's introduction, it sounded a little bit like I wrote the article, which is not the case. Linda Wolf wrote the article, and she just passed away this year. It was a big watershed moment for the New York dance group. Lindsay has the page from the arts and leisure section that we can look at. And I love seeing the whole page, because up at the top, you can see Howard Stern, the radio shock jock in the film Private Parts, being reviewed on an inside page. And then down at the bottom, you can see Whoopi Goldberg, who had a role in a stage production of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. And there we are in between. The big picture is from the Gwyneth Paltrow version of Emma, and Jeremy Northern is her partner there as Mr. Knightley. And Toni Collette, who is had a very busy film and TV career since then, played Harriet Smith, and she's in second place there. So the article had a good deal of Linda's personal narrative in it about how she came to enjoy dancing. And I think that was pretty unusual for the time. There wasn't that much personal writing in news articles. So the dance happened. The hall was packed. We got a good turnout for weeks afterwards. People kept coming, and quite a number of people who were brought to dancing by that particular event stayed on and became pivotal part of Country Dance New York. One of the other benefits of the evening was that Colin Hume wrote a dance called the New York Times in honor of that day. So that was a Jane Austen event that had a lot of lasting positive effect. I've also called 2 balls for the Jane Austen Society of North America. And we have a picture of people dancing in Brooklyn. Maybe Lindsay can bring that up. So 2011, I was in Dallas-Fort Worth, and 2012, the annual general meeting was in Brooklyn. Some folks listening tonight might know Elizabeth Friedman, and she is at the far end of this long ways line, wearing a dark dress with her beautiful white hair. So what you can see here is a lot of people attend the Jane Austen annual general meetings to dress up and have fun. And I can just imagine these dancers enjoying being at the dance, and in their own minds, Mr. Darcy is across the set. And it's quite a challenge to call for a ballroom with a carpeted floor and a few hundred people who are once a year dancers. So they are all thinking that Mr. Darcy is across the set. I personally would prefer to have Mr. Tilney from Northanger Abbey across the set, because not only is he charming, he loves dancing, and he knows all about muslin. So who would not want to have a textile-loving, charming dance partner? So Mr. Tilney, it must be. And I don't think I have too much else to say about Jane Austen right now. Dancing is in all of the novels and spread through her letters. One of the last mentions of dance, she says that she's now going to be some sort of chaperone and sit by the fire and drink as much wine as I like. So the end of her dancing career had some benefits too, because a seat by the fire was not always easy to get.
Beverly, you also made a really nice couple of sheets for people for reference. We're going to post a link to that. The Jane Austen sheets?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you were going to say anything else about those.
Oh, yeah. There are two documents. One is a list of the dances I called at the 1997 dance in New York, and some of the thinking that went behind those selections. So it's kind of a ready-made program if you want. The other is a document of dances that are published from Jane Austen's lifetime or almost in Jane Austen's lifetime, and where they can be found. So they are all reconstructions in modern publications that are available now. And it's probably not too soon to give a shout out for Allison Thompson's book. I know she's going to come and speak herself one of these days. Is that frontwards or backwards to you? I guess
that's just fine for us.
Yeah. So
Read it.
Dances from Jane Austen's Assembly Rooms, and then it has a lengthy subtitle. A collection of 40 dance tunes from Jane Austen's music books, as well as 46 popular dance tunes of the day, with the choicest selection of figures set to them as danced at court, bath, and all public assemblies, together with poems, sermons, songs, elegant extracts, exhortations, and descriptive essays, etc., all selected and written in a style guaranteed to elevate, instruct, and amuse. So that's Allison's book. You'll hear more about it another day.
You know, we've been running a little bit late, and we started a little bit late, but all the same, we are going to take a really great question. Lindsay, go ahead.
We have a question from David Millstone.
Hey, Beverly.
Hi, David.
Nice to see you out there. I love the way you've arranged your flowers to match your dress and your necklace. It's very, very stylish. So, well, that's you. So my question is about Jane Austen, and of course, the people who were dancing at her time were young people, and the dances were vigorous dances, and people hopping and skipping and bouncing around a lot. And the people who are at most English country dance events these days are older and don't hop and skip. And then you're constantly, one is being asked to call for a Jane Austen ball, and we want to do Jane Austen dances. And of course, if you call a program of Jane Austen dances to today's English country dancers, people will get very bored. They don't want to hop and skip. And so how do you balance the interest in you already mentioned you don't do footwork. How do you balance trying to be reasonably historically accurate with wanting people to have a good time?
One way is to make sure you include some waltz dances. In Jane Austen's day, couple waltzing was not done in polite society, but dances in three-quarter time were popular. North Down Waltz, Duke of Kent, Prince William of Gloucester are pretty well known to our community. There's also Cambridge Waltz and I think Sussex Waltz. And unfortunately, all the tunes sound like the same tune. And that is true, actually, of a lot of the jigs and reels. The tunes are pretty formulaic. But interspersing waltzes certainly can deal with energy load. And if I were doing an evening with a lot of experienced people in the crowd, I'd probably stray a bit from the strict time frame. At one of the Rochester balls, I saw on video the caller was doing Alice, and she said, you know, if Jane Austen were alive today, she would really love this dance. So, you know, you can basically give yourself permission to do anything if you frame it okay. I had some other thought that has gone away on the wind. Well, if you're dealing with beginners, this was my other thought. Beginners, you know, say you've taught them 4 changes of rights and lefts, or you've taught them a half poussette, or you've taught them some form of an allemande. You want to repeat that over and over and over again for a beginner's evening, because it's something they can hang their hat on and feel secure about. a mixed crowd or an experienced crowd would be bored, but a beginner crowd says, four changes of rights and lefts, I can do that. So it depends on your audience too. And I just kind of, depending on the age of the crowd, I don't deal with footwork or energy level very much. So I hope that's helpful.
It is. It is. Thanks. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks, David.
And we will be taking more questions in the after talk, and there's some really fun stuff. I know you guys are waiting for it. Not going to come until the after talk. And there was so much going on, and it was so interesting. It suddenly dawned on me about 10 minutes ago that we never asked you, what's your favorite dance?
Well, my favorite historical dance, we heard on the intro, Mr. Isaac's Maggot. I love the fact that it's a grand triple time tune and that the beginning is so elegant and a little bit playful at the same time. I love how towards the end of the dance, there's kind of this rugby scrum and all of a sudden you're in a line of four facing up, and how the lead up and fall back exactly fits the music. It's fabulous. If I were going to pick a historical dance, today I might pick Easter Morn, which was constructed by Ernelyn Bogue. And I love the tune title. It is Miss Gordon of Gicht. And what's not to love about a title, Miss Gordon of Gicht? It's such a wonderful tune. You float on the crest of the wave throughout. The ones never stop moving. And it has this wonderful moment where you're doing a left-hand star with your neighbors, and there's this parachute opening effect where it goes from the star to a circle right. And I just think that is so spectacular. It's such a beautifully constructed dance. If I had to pick a traditional dance, I just have to squeeze in Speed the Plow.
Oh,
Speed the Plow.
I love Speed the Plow.
Absolute favorite traditional dance.
Yeah,
so
great.
There you go.
Somebody else.
Those and a few hundred more are my favorite dances.
Thank you so much, Beverly. It's been so wonderful to have you with us, and I am really looking forward to the after talk because there are people out there that are waiting for it, and they have to wait and come into the after talk. Thank you so much. I'm going to start my litany of thank yous and what's up ahead because we are a bit over time, but do you have anything else you'd like to say just as final closer?
Well, I'm so thrilled to have been invited and to be in such good hands to help make this production seem pretty smooth and pain-free. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so let me thank our Five Things team, Lindsay Verbal and Renee Turner on Zoom and Larry Hansen on Facebook, monitoring all those chat questions and posts. Thank you, shout out to Cullen Hume for posting all of our web chats on his website. And also thank you to you folks who have been sending in donations. It's very appreciated. There are operational expenses and a lot of time spent creating the show, so it really does help with those costs. Thank you, thank you. Lindsay and Larry are posting the After Talk link, and if I doubt you'll be asked for it, but if you need a word, the word is there for you to use. The magic word. Coming up this week and next, actually next week, I forgot to change that. Coming up next week, August 11th, Gary Rudman. Well, what can we say? Mary Kay, Apollo's Hunt, Emma Turns 3, The Homecoming, The Invitation, Turning by Threes, the list goes on, 200 dances, and English Country and Contra dances speaks for themselves. What goes on inside the dancing mind of Gary Rudman? Find out next week. And the registration link for that is being posted in the chat box, so you can sign up early. In 2 weeks is our third Saturday Historical Dance web chat, August 15th with Allison Thompson. Beverly mentioned her book. She's amazing. Check out her blog. We're going to post a little bio if you are one of the people who don't know who she is. Coming up this Saturday, that's what's this week, we still have a very few tickets left to a Jane Austen era dance lecture by Susan de Guardiola, The Hunting of the Panurge. It's at 2 p.m. Pacific and 5 p.m. Eastern, and it's a dance history detective novel of how she hunted out the Panurge. And what's really super nice about this is you will all receive a reconstruction of the dance suitable for Jane Austen events, including sheet music and a dance length fiddle recording. So it is limited to only 50. We are running out of spaces. So if you're interested, please don't wait. I am pretty sure we'll be sold out by tomorrow morning. Other events, we're going to post the link for the Breton Dance and Music session tonight with Shara Kamen, who's going to be on here on 5 Things, August 25th, Jim Oakton and Adrienne Simpson. Sorry I didn't have her last name when I sent out the postings, but her last name is Simpson. For donations, CDSS, and we'll put the link up as we play the exit music, which is one of the favorite dances, Easter Morn. The band is Childgrove. Musicians are Debbie Jackson, Ann Ogren, and Martha Stokely. The CD is Early Instincts. It's available at CDSS Bookstore. And come to the after talk, which will start a minute or two after the music ends. And it's going to be fun. So come to the after talk. See y'all in just a few minutes. Thank you, Beverly. Thank you, Lindsay, Renee, Larry. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
A pleasure. Thanks so much.
It's been great.